She found out she was pregnant probably like a month ago. And she told him, and he was saying that he didn't want any more kids. He's married. He's not supposed to go outside his relationship.
And what is his reaction?
He wanted her to get an abortion.
On October 31st, 2009, Sylvia Watkins reported her 25-year-old sister, Samira Watkins, missing in Pensacola, Florida. According to Sylvia, Samira had mentioned plans to visit her boyfriend, Ricky, after finishing work. The couple had been experiencing tension in their relationship due to an unplanned pregnancy. While Samira was excited about the baby, Ricky was adamantly against the idea. His frustration over the matter had even shown signs of escalating into violence. Despite Samira's intentions to visit Ricky that evening, she never returned home. Concerned for her sister's safety, Sylvia immediately reached out to the police, who wasted no time launching an investigation. However, early efforts yielded little progress. There was no evidence to follow, and it seemed the case was on the verge of going cold. Then during an interrogation, a shocking revelation came to light, reshaping the entire investigation. While filing the missing persons report, Sylvia disclosed a critical piece of information about Ricky. She revealed that, desperate for answers, she had gone to Ricky's house the very next day after Samira disappeared. What she found there was far from what she had hoped for. Instead of her sister, Sylvia stumbled upon a devastating truth that would serve as the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding Samira's disappearance.
About 12, we went out there. Me and my cousin went out there. And that's when we knocked on his door. We didn't get no answer, so we knocked on the neighbor's door. And that's when she told us that he was loading a couch on a truck and said that he was moving because he needed a bigger place for his wife and kids.
The revelation that Samira's boyfriend was leading a double life sent shockwaves through Sylvia's mind. The 24-year-old U.S. Navy personnel, whom Samira knew as Ricky, was not only hiding a wife and child, but was also living under a false identity. His real name was Zachary Littleton. This wasn't just an unsettling discovery. It was a bombshell that shattered everything Sylvia thought she knew about the man her sister had been seeing. With a missing woman and a deceitful, double-faced boyfriend at the center of the mystery, the Pensacola Police Department quickly turned their focus to Zachary. Detectives decided to confront him, starting with a phone call. Lieutenant Jonathan Thayer, leading the investigation, opened the call with a sharp and pointed question, a strategic move to gauge Zachary's reaction. To the detective's surprise, Zachary didn't attempt to deny his identity or even hesitate. Instead, he casually confirmed that he was indeed Zachary Littleton, showing little to no reaction. The lack of resistance only deepened the intrigue, leaving investigators wondering what else this man might be hiding.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, this is Ricky.
It's Zachary Littleton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What's going on?
While Lieutenant Thayer was already taken aback by Zachary's calm admission of his true identity, what came next left the entire investigative team even more astonished. When asked about Samira's whereabouts, Zachary's response was unexpected, catching the police off guard and deepening the mystery surrounding her disappearance.
Hey, you know this young lady, Samira?
Samira. Yeah, she said Sammy. That's what she told me, kind of Sammy.
Zachary attempted to downplay his connection to Samira, vaguely hinting that he didn't know her very well. However, this raised even more suspicion. To gain a clearer understanding of the situation, Lieutenant Thayer summoned Zachary to the police station for further questioning. Meanwhile, the police recognized the delicate and complex nature of the case. A missing woman whose pregnancy stemmed from an affair with a man leading a double life. To ensure the investigation was handled with precision and legal clarity, they reached out to prosecutor Bridget Mears Jensen. Her involvement marked a critical step in addressing what was quickly shaping up to be a high-stakes case with potential implications of foul play.
I became involved early on in the case because there was such an unusual and suspicious circumstance. Zachary Littleton was initially a suspect, and probably the strongest suspect, because he found out that Samira was pregnant and he was not happy about the pregnancy. He was also the last person that we knew Samira had been with the night that she went missing.
When Zachary finally sat down for questioning, the detectives uncovered yet another startling detail. He wasn't just a member of the U.S. Navy, he was also a military policeman. This revelation added an entirely new layer to the case. The man they were interrogating wasn't just any suspect. He was someone trained in law enforcement, possibly skilled at concealing the truth and evading suspicion. The discovery intensified the stakes for the investigation, leaving detectives questioning how deeply Zachary's deceit might run and whether his training had played a role in Samira's disappearance.
Okay, all right. You'll have a seat here. You work for the Navy, right?
Right. NAS Police Department.
Okay, so you're are you like a military police? Okay.
Zachary's role as a military policeman initially gave detectives pause, leading them to consider the possibility that he might not have harmed Samira. However, they weren't ready to rule him out as a suspect just yet. Lieutenant Thayer pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. He began the questioning with a direct and pointed demand. When was the last time you saw Samira? The tension in the room was palpable as the detectives awaited Zachary's response, knowing that his answer could either help clear him or deepen their suspicions.
So you've known her for how long then?
Sammy. I'm trying to think. It's a few months, not a whole year.
When is the last time that you saw Sammy?
Last time I seen her was Wednesday when I dropped off at home.
Have you seen her at any time since when you dropped her off?
No, I haven't.
Zachary claimed he hadn't seen Samira on October 29, 2009, the day she disappeared, and insisted their last meeting was the day before. However, his statement directly contradicted Sylvia's account. Sylvia had reported that Samira went to Zachary's house that evening, intending to arrive by 9 p.m. after finishing her shift. CCTV footage from the McDonald's restaurant where Samira worked as a manager confirmed she had clocked out at the end of her shift. According to Sylvia, Samira had gone home briefly before heading to Zachary's place. These inconsistencies only deepened the investigators' suspicions. Pressing further, Lieutenant Thayer shifted the conversation to Zachary's relationship with Samira. He noticed Zachary growing visibly uneasy, hesitating to share details. The reason was clear. Adultery carried serious consequences for military personnel, potentially jeopardizing Zachary's rank and career in the Navy. Sensing his reluctance, Lieutenant Thayer assured Zachary that any personal secrets he disclosed would remain confidential, hoping to coax him into opening up.
Did you have any kind of a relationship with Sammy that was more than just friends?
No.
I want you to know that I'm not the military. I want you to feel free to tell me everything without you worrying about getting in trouble.
Okay, we had once or twice. You know, it wasn't nothing really a relationship. It was just friends. That's what I thought it was. So maybe I did some things, I said some things that probably made her believe that we was in a relationship, but I didn't see it that way. Sometimes I just catch her staring at me and just, looking at me like she just admired by me so much. That's when I was like, nah, man, we can't. We knew from the beginning that you weren't going to be the woman in my life.
Was she depressed acting or anything?
She was kind of like having a sad tone to her. But she's like, we need to talk.
Was the conversation centered around her thinking that she was pregnant with your child?
No, it was more centered around why we can't spend time together.
Was she pregnant?
I don't know.
So she never came to you and said, hey, this is your baby? She never actually came out and said that?
No, just like the baby was going to be born.
Well, I mean, if she really was pregnant, weren't you at all concerned?
For it to be mine?
Right.
No.
Feeling more at ease, Zachary began to share new details with Lieutenant Thayer. He downplayed his relationship with Samira, describing it as a casual friendship with occasional intimacy. He also dismissed any concerns about her pregnancy, portraying himself as indifferent to the situation. This detached and nonchalant demeanor was a stark contrast to the aggressive and confrontational behavior Sylvia had reported, where Zachary had demanded Samira get an abortion. So far, Zachary had painted a picture of innocence, carefully distancing himself from any serious connection to Samira or her disappearance. However, Lieutenant Thayer wasn't convinced. As he dug deeper into the case, he uncovered a critical detail that shattered Zachary's carefully constructed facade and hinted at a darker truth. The missing piece? Zachary's wife, who was also in the Navy, was set to transfer to Pensacola from North Carolina in just a week. This revelation raised a chilling possibility. Had Samira's pregnancy and the potential exposure of his affair pushed Zachary to take drastic, irreversible actions to protect his double life? The discovery shifted the investigation into high gear, revealing cracks in Zachary's story and bringing detectives closer to uncovering the truth about what happened that fateful night.
Thursdays I work, and then night I was boxing up and cleaning up stuff. Well, I ain't really clean, I was just boxing up my belongings and stuff. But my wife and my daughter, they'll be here in Friday, the 6th.
By this point, investigators were aware that Zachary had a family of his own. However, the revelation of their imminent arrival in Pensacola completely reframed the case. The timeline suggested a perfect storm of complications for Zachary: an affair, an unexpected pregnancy, and the looming arrival of his wife and child. To the police, this only solidified a potential motive for Zachary to eliminate Samira. She was a threat to his carefully constructed double life. Adding to the suspicion, Zachary claimed he had been home all night on October 29th, packing for a move to a larger house. Yet when pressed for details, he admitted he had no alibi to corroborate his story. His narrative began to crumble under scrutiny, but it was what Zachary said next that completely blindsided the detectives. In a shocking twist, Zachary casually admitted that he was a self-described player who frequently engaged in flings. To support his claim, he revealed that he even owned a second phone specifically for managing these extramarital encounters. The bold admission sent shockwaves through the investigation, exposing a new layer of deceit and casting Zachary in an even more suspicious light. The detectives now had more questions than ever. How many secrets was Zachary hiding, and what role did his double life play in Samira's disappearance?
I had 2 cell phones. I had a Boost mobile phone, and that number she used to call me on. Like, I cut that phone off.
So the Boost one, she used to call you on that?
Mm-hmm.
And why'd you shut it off again?
Because I was getting text messages, just didn't want to have nobody call me and harassing me about anything, so I cut it off.
Zachary's possession of a burner phone raised red flags for investigators. Such phones, which can be easily purchased without identification and just as easily discarded, are often associated with illicit activities. Combined with his lack of concern for Samira's disappearance and singular focus on clearing his name before his wife's arrival, Zachary's behavior appeared highly suspicious. With less than a week until his wife's move to Pensacola, it was clear he was desperate to bury any evidence of his affairs. While Zachary tried to play it cool in the interrogation room, Lieutenant Thayer made a bold move. Keeping Zachary occupied, a team of officers headed to his house for a surprise search. The home, cluttered from Zachary's packing for his move, revealed no signs of a struggle or incriminating evidence. The absence of blood or signs of conflict cast doubt on the theory that Samira had been harmed at Zachary's residence. This forced detectives to consider that Zachary, despite his questionable ethics, might not have been directly involved in Samira's disappearance. Broadening their scope, the investigators turned their attention to Samira's past. What they uncovered next promised to shift the investigation entirely. Samira, they learned, was no stranger to turbulent relationships. She was the mother of a 4-year-old boy from a previous abusive relationship with her ex-boyfriend, William Peters. Their relationship had been deeply toxic, marked by physical violence and emotional strain. To protect herself, Samira had obtained a restraining order against William, choosing to raise her son alone while juggling work, knee college, and dental assistant training. But the most chilling discovery was this: William Peters had been released from prison shortly before Samira's disappearance. He had been incarcerated for assaulting Samira, making him a compelling suspect. Investigators speculated that William, driven by anger or jealousy, might have sought revenge against his former partner. To follow this lead, detectives contacted William's mother, Linda Nobles, to determine his whereabouts on the night of October 29, 2009. What they uncovered next was a shocking twist that added yet another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case.
All right, so she was supposed to come by to drop off her child for you to watch him?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Did you ever find out why it is that she didn't?
I never heard from her.
You're aware that she was last seen on October the 29th, 2009. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. On that date, do you remember much about that evening?
Well, I know I hadn't seen her that day, and I had been here all day. She supposed to have came by to drop on off, but never did show up.
Let's talk about William for a minute, okay? William has a job, yes?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
He does have a job. What is his job?
He worked with my daughter.
Okay, what kind of work do they do?
They do sanitary cleaning.
Okay. So they clean office buildings?
Yes, they do.
In a surprising twist, detectives discovered that Samira had stopped by Linda and William's house on the day of her disappearance to drop off her son in their care. This revelation painted a more nuanced picture of her relationship with the Peters family. Despite the tumultuous history with William, it seemed there was a level of trust between Samira and his family, suggesting the bad blood between them might not have been as irreparable as previously assumed. This detail complicated the investigation further. On one hand, it indicated that Samira didn't view William or his family as an immediate threat. On the other, it placed William and Linda at the center of the timeline on the day Samira vanished, making their statements and actions critical to uncovering the truth.
When William got out of jail, it was a short time before Samira went missing. So that was another thing that was a red flag for us, that perhaps William Peters was responsible for Samira going missing. I did go to his house. I interviewed his family. And on the night of October 29th, I was able to verify that William Peters was actually on a crew that night cleaning, and I had his alibi pretty well secured at that point.
And therefore, he was ruled out as a suspect.
The lingering suspicion around William was ultimately dispelled by his behavior and corroborated alibis. Despite his abusive past, William showed genuine concern for Samira's well-being, a stark contrast to Zachary's detached and evasive attitude. To solidify his innocence, both William's mother, Linda, and his workplace provided reliable alibis, confirming he wasn't involved on the night of Samira's disappearance. However, while investigators were able to rule out William as a suspect, Samira's whereabouts remained a troubling mystery. According to Zachary, she had never arrived at his house that night, raising the possibility that something might have happened to her on the way. Yet another equally unsettling scenario lingered. What if Samira had reached Zachary's house but never made it back to Linda's? As both theories were considered, the list of potential suspects narrowed down to just one person: Zachary. Lieutenant Thayer returned to question Zachary again, pushing harder this time. During the interrogation, an oddly specific detail from Zachary's statements caught the detective's attention. Something that hinted he knew more than he was letting on. Then, just as the investigation seemed to be closing in, the case took a dramatic and heartbreaking turn. The police received a call that would completely change the nature of the case, unraveling the grim truth behind Samira's disappearance and exposing a devastating reality no one had anticipated.
Sheriff's 911, what's your emergency?
It's a Navy Point.
Okay, what's the Navy Point?
We think we found a dead body. It's in a bag, a big old like a big old bag you carry on a plane. It looks like it has blood over it. Has a big old lock upon it. It's off the beach. It's real heavy.
4 days after her disappearance, the search for Samira Watkins came to a tragic end. On November 2nd, 2009, her lifeless body was discovered stuffed inside a bag near Naval Point, just a short distance from the entrance to Zachary's workplace. The sight was both heartbreaking and horrifying. Samira was clad only in her bra, with her mouth, face, and ears bound tightly with duct tape. The brutal nature of her death shocked investigators and intensified the urgency to uncover the truth. The location of her body immediately raised alarm bells. Its proximity to Zachary's workplace, combined with Lieutenant Thayer's observation of a subtle but suspicious change in Zachary's demeanor during questioning the day before, cast an even darker shadow of doubt over him. The evidence, though circumstantial, was beginning to converge, and all signs were pointing in one troubling direction: Zachary Littleton.
I'm trying to recreate this young lady in my mind. I don't know her. All right. And if I can recreate her and kind of get in her head, I might be able to find out where she's at, what her demeanor was like.
She was a real calm girl. She wasn't no feisty type or no. Yeah. She was real, just calm, and, I ain't gonna say she was nice, she had good tendencies to be a good woman. I put it like that.
Referring to a missing person in the past tense may seem minor, But it became a crucial red flag when Samira's body was discovered near Zachary's workplace. The autopsy revealed that she had died from strangulation, confirming the grim circumstances of her death. Inside the bag where her body was found, investigators uncovered several items: a used Clorox wipe, a piece of soiled tissue paper with a distinct pattern, and traces of soil. While these items didn't immediately reveal where she had died or who had killed her, they hinted at an attempt to clean up evidence. Forensics, however, identified a vital clue among these seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence, one that would later unlock the truth behind Samira's tragic end. This discovery became the turning point in the investigation, finally shedding light on the events leading to her death and unmasking the person responsible.
When the autopsy was done on Samira, the medical examiner removed the duct tape from around her face and around her head, around her ears, and it was noticed at that point that she was only wearing one of her gold hoop earrings. And the reason this was so significant is because these earrings were so sentimental to her, and according to her family members, she wore them all the time.
One crucial discovery by the forensics team stood out. Samira was missing a gold earring from one of her ears. When police spoke to Sylvia, they learned that these earrings were cherished family heirlooms in the Watkins household, and Samira always wore them. CCTV footage from the McDonald's where she worked confirmed that she had both earrings on during her shift. This suggested that the missing earring might have fallen off during a struggle with her attacker, potentially marking a key moment in the crime. With only one suspect left on their list, Zachary Littleton, the police ramped up their efforts. Determined to uncover the truth, Detective Thayer and his team played their biggest card, enlisting the help of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, NCIS. This collaboration marked a pivotal moment in the case, as the NCIS had the resources and authority to dig deeper into Zachary's life as a naval officer. According to Detective Thayer, the Pensacola Police Department requested NCIS involvement for two key reasons. First, as Zachary was a member of the Navy, NCIS could thoroughly investigate his conduct and background. Second, NCIS could question naval personnel, including Zachary's friends and colleagues, to gather additional insights. With the NCIS on board, the investigation entered a new phase, poised to uncover the dark secrets surrounding Samira's death. One of the first individuals questioned was Gashaw, a colleague and friend of Zachary's at the Naval Air Base. While Zachary's alibi seemed intact for the time he was at work, the narrative began to unravel as soon as he left the base. During questioning, investigators uncovered a significant loophole in one of Zachary's previous statements, casting further doubt on his version of events and pushing the case toward a dramatic showdown with the truth.
Did you work on Thursday?
Yes, I did.
Past Thursday?
Yes, I did.
When did you next hear Littleton?
Oh, in the parking lot.
When?
That evening, after we downloaded it, because we were making plans for me to go over the next morning and help him move from his apartment to his new house.
All right, so is in the parking lot that he approached you about helping him move?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what time was that?
About 10:15-ish, maybe. I mean, at the latest. That morning, he texted me about 7-something in the morning, and I was still sleeping. And I woke up at about 8:30-ish, and he said, "Can you be here by 9?" But I couldn't get there until 9:15.
All right, so you guys arrive at his house, and what happens at his house?
We were standing there. We basically made up like a game plan on how we want to start moving everything, and he backed the truck up, and then we started taking the furniture down.
But surely he has other things, knick-knack things, clothing.
Yes. As I asked him, I was like, "Why isn't your clothes packed?" And he said, "I don't have any luggage." He pulled all his drawers out, and he just set them on the side, and we didn't move those down. When I left, they were still in his bedroom.
While this revelation intensified the police's suspicions against Zachary, what they uncovered next left little doubt about his involvement. The new piece of evidence didn't just hint at his guilt, it almost definitively painted him as the man responsible for Samira's tragic death. The case had reached a turning point, and the walls were closing in on Zachary as detectives pieced together the final, damning details of the crime.
We did have a friend come forward that said that on the morning of October 30th, so we're talking about the morning after Samira's disappearance, Zach comes to her house at 5 a.m., so very early, and he's asking if he can do his laundry over at her house.
Adding yet another nail to the coffin, the police uncovered a critical detail from Zachary's supervisor. Contrary to Zachary's claims, his supervisor confirmed that Samira had indeed been seen on October 29th, and she had made it to Zachary's apartment that evening. This directly contradicted Zachary's earlier statements, further entangling him in a web of lies. But what truly backed Zachary into a corner was a question posed by his supervisor. This vital query struck at the heart of the investigation, leaving Zachary with no easy way out and solidifying the growing mountain of suspicion against him.
Is there anything that you can think of that might be pertinent that you think we should know, or something that you might recall that might give you more?
Me being his mentor, I asked him, is he okay? And he said one thing. He said that, yeah, she came over and asked to stay over, and I told her I don't want her to come over here, so I took her home. And I said, took her home? Like, if he took her home, what happened to a car, stuff like that?
What night was he saying that was?
Thursday.
The question about Samira's car had been a persistent puzzle for investigators. Like her body, the car had seemingly vanished without a trace. However, just as the case appeared to be stalling, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A local Pensacola resident provided the police with critical information about the missing vehicle, shedding new light on the case. This new lead not only offered fresh evidence, but also connected key pieces of the puzzle, pushing the investigation closer to uncovering the full truth about what had happened to Samira.
We had a neighbor contact the police to say that they had located a red Ford Taurus. Now, that Taurus was parked in a driveway, and it had been there for several days. So when we got there, we found that it was indeed Samira's car.
The discovery of Samira's red Ford Taurus provided the breakthrough investigators needed to link Zachary Littleton to her murder. Despite his claims that he had never been inside the car, forensic analysis told a very different story. Zachary's DNA was found inside the vehicle. This damning evidence shattered Zachary's alibi and tied him directly to Samira in her final moments, marking a pivotal moment in the case. The once cautious naval officer's web of lies was unraveling, and the truth was closing in on him.
Law enforcement found Zachary Littleton's DNA on the steering wheel of Samira Watkins' car. He had mentioned in one of his interviews that he had never been in her car, much less driven it, so that was obviously very important.
This critical evidence was enough for the police to secure an official search warrant for Zachary's residence. Unlike their previous visit, this time the police did not leave empty-handed. The search yielded significant findings that would further implicate Zachary and bring investigators closer to unraveling the full truth behind Samira's tragic death.
On November 6th, we conducted a search warrant at Zachary Littleton's home. Now, keep in mind, we believed that when the murder occurred, he was living at the apartment. We had looked in the apartment, found that there was nothing there of value, but we also knew that a lot of the evidence he could have very easily moved with him, either knowingly or inadvertently.
When law enforcement was going through the different areas of his house, inside of one of the bedrooms were some paper towels that had a pattern that were consistent with the paper towels that were found inside the duffel bag. And there was also a can of Clorox wipes that were consistent with a wipe that was found in the duffel bag.
During the search, the police uncovered the sources of 2 additional items found in the bag with Samira's body, providing a crucial link between the crime and Zachary. Even more damning was the discovery of the missing gold earring, an heirloom that had been assumed to have fallen off during the attack. Its presence in Zachary's home directly tied him to the scene of the crime and reinforced the mounting evidence against him. With these discoveries, the case against Zachary Littleton grew stronger, leaving little doubt that he was responsible for Samira's tragic death.
The number one most valuable item that we found, the thing that was the best piece of evidence, was the earring. An earring that matched exactly the earring that Samira Watkins had.
Eliminating any remaining room for doubt, the NCIS delivered one final piece of assistance to the Pensacola Police Department, an invaluable revelation that dismantled all of Zachary's shocking lies. This crucial evidence not only solidified the case against him, but also exposed the true depth of his deceit, leaving no question about his role in Samira's tragic death.
One of the things that NCIS helped us out with is that there was new technology at the time for cell phone mapping, specifically cell phone tower mapping. I knew I'd be able to get the tower hits from the phone provider, but the mapping would have been made a lot easier if NCIS was involved. So when I pulled Samira's phone records in the months leading up to her death, I did see where she was talking to Littleton pretty regularly. But then there came a point where that stopped, but then a mystery number came about. I think that when he decided he was going to kill Samira is when he decided to cut ties with her from his regular phone and start using the burner phone without supposedly us finding out. And on the day of her disappearance, that number called her a total of 11 times. It was the main number calling her, quite frankly.
The final blow to Zachary's web of lies came when phone records revealed a critical truth. Both Samira's and Zachary's phones had traveled together on the night of her disappearance. This was indisputable evidence that he had been with her that evening, directly contradicting his alibi. To make matters worse, police discovered that Zachary had visited the exact location where Samira's body was later found. This proved that he had not been at home as he claimed, but was instead carrying out a chilling plan to end his affair and the life of his unborn child, both of which threatened to jeopardize his professional and personal stability. With this damning evidence, the case against Zachary Littleton reached its undeniable conclusion, leaving no doubt about his culpability in Samira's tragic demise.
NCIS was able to determine where their cell phones were pinging onto the nearby cell phone towers. And with that information, we were able to track the two of them who were traveling together, and it also put holes in Zachary Littleton's story about moving and not seeing Samira.
We could see plain as day where Samira was at work at her fast food job, that she left, that she came down to where she lives, which is pretty much across town. She's there for a little while, and the next thing you know, you see her heading back up to the area where Zachary Littleton lived. And it actually showed she made it to his house, despite him saying earlier in our interviews that she never arrived. And instead of him being at home all night and packing like he told us, we see him actually leaving his house by way of the tower hits and headed back toward the base.
With all the evidence pointing to Zachary's guilt, only one question remained. How did Zachary get back home? Samira's car was discovered approximately 10 miles from the location where her body was found, leaving the police to wonder about his movements afterward. The answer came swiftly. Investigators reached out to taxi companies across Pensacola, asking if Zachary had used their services on October 30th, 2009. This meticulous effort would soon provide the final piece of the puzzle, shedding light on how Zachary returned home that night and further solidifying the case against him.
Zach had ordered a cab from a Waffle House that was about a mile from where Samira's car was left.
Sure enough, the police struck gold once again. Their inquiries led them to a taxi driver who confirmed transporting Zachary to a Waffle House in the early hours of October 30th, 2009. This lead was a game changer as it placed Zachary near the scene of the crime during the critical timeline. The connection was undeniable. This final piece of evidence tied Zachary almost red-handed to the murder, leaving no room for further excuses or lies. The walls had closed in, and the truth of his actions that night was now inescapable.
They went to that location and got video surveillance and were able to find Zachary Littleton inside the Waffle House at approximately 4:20 a.m. with a can of Clorox wipes.
A haunting image emerged, an early mugshot of Zachary Littleton, but instead of the typical board displaying his information, he was photographed holding a roll of tissue paper, the same distinct tissue found in the bag containing Samira's body. On November 23, 2009, Detective Thayer and his team arrested Zachary Littleton for the first-degree murder of Samira Watkins. Despite making the arrest within a month of her death, proving Zachary's guilt in court was no easy task. The primary challenge was the lack of direct physical or forensic evidence tying him conclusively to the murder. On June 27, 2011, the trial of the state of Florida versus Zachary Littleton began in an Escambia County courthouse. The prosecution, led by Bridget Jensen, presented a compelling case, including phone mapping evidence that placed Zachary and Samira together, DNA from Zachary found in her car, and, most damningly, the gold earring discovered in his apartment. These pieces built a strong, circumstantial case, But the defense leaned heavily on the absence of concrete forensic evidence directly linking Zachary to the act of murder. Then, in a dramatic turn, the prosecution played their final wild card. This piece of evidence was so compelling that it left the jury with little room for doubt, tipping the scales irreversibly against Zachary Littleton.
Some of the most important pieces of evidence to show the jurors were some searches on Zachary Littleton's computer.
These searches included how long does it take for a body to decompose. He was looking at searches related to putting a body in a landfill, how to cause a person to have an abortion. Does drinking vinegar cause an abortion? He was Googling abortion locations within our city.
Those searches then turned into how to speed up human decomposition, and then they led into how to pass a polygraph. So his searches were obviously key in the time frame of, beginning when she was pregnant to then wanting to cause a miscarriage to then when he was being interrogated by law enforcement.
The final piece of circumstantial evidence that sealed Zachary Littleton's fate came from his internet search history. These searches provided crucial insight into his motives and actions, leaving little doubt in the jury's mind about what really happened to Samira Watkins. Just 3 days later, on June 30th, 2011, after a brief deliberation of only 3 hours, Zachary was convicted of the first-degree murder of Samira Watkins. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Nearly 2 years after Samira's tragic death, her case was finally solved and justice was served. However, the story remains both shocking and deeply heartbreaking. Samira Watkins was a young mother, working tirelessly to make the best decisions for herself and her 4-year-old son. Tragically, she became ensnared in a web of deceit spun by a man who saw her not as a partner, but as a tool to satisfy his selfish desires. Despite facing immense challenges, Samira chose to embrace her pregnancy and bring a new life into the world. Yet this decision, made with courage and love, ultimately led to her paying the ultimate price, her life, at just 25 years old. Before we conclude, we extend our deepest condolences to Samira's family and loved ones, who have endured unimaginable pain. We hope that the resolution of this case brings them some measure of peace and closure as they continue to honor Samira's memory. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments below. If you have other intriguing cases you'd like us to cover, please share your suggestions. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it compelling, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more cases like this one.